Welcome to this session in the Sheltered Instruction Strategy series. Today we're going to talk about lesson differentiation, and we're going to focus on differentiating through content. Today's agenda is as follows. We're going to talk about what does differentiating have to do with great teaching. We're going to discuss different ways to differentiate. We'll talk about readiness, interest, and learning profile of students when differentiating. And finally, we'll touch on some examples of differentiating through content. Let's get to it. Now, to understand how differentiation can help with a teacher's performance, let's look at an example of teacher evaluation. This is the Danielson model. Okay, let's skip over to proficient. In order for a teacher to be proficient, the teacher coordinates knowledge of content, of students, and of resources to design a series of learning experiences aligned to instructional outcomes and suitable for groups of students. The lesson or unit has a clear structure and is likely to engage students in significant learning. Let's compare this to distinguished. The teacher coordinates knowledge of content, of students, and of resources to design a series of learning experiences aligned to instructional outcomes, differentiated where appropriate to make them suitable to all students and likely to engage them in significant learning. The lesson or unit structure is clear and allows for different pathways according to student needs. So as you can see, when we compare proficient to distinguished, the clear difference is that the distinguished lesson differentiates according to the student needs. So how can teachers differentiate? You can differentiate through content, through process, or through product. In this session, we're going to focus on content, and in later sessions, we'll focus on process and product. Differentiating can be done according to the student's readiness, interests, or learning profiles. Differentiation according to readiness is used to increase growth. Differentiation according to interest is used to increase motivation. And differentiation according to learning profile is used to increase efficiency. Okay, let's focus in on readiness. Here, if we're talking about English language learners, you want to know your students' language proficiency. For example, their access scores. You want to know your students' content ability and background knowledge. This can be done through summative or formative assessments. You want to identify your content's major goals, and you want to prepare lessons that take into consideration multiple abilities. When we're looking at interests, you want to survey your students' interests. You want to allow your students to make choices when learning content, for example, through centers or task cards. You want to allow students to select topics of study. With learning profile, you want to plan visual and physical as well as oral presentations. You want to integrate content across the curriculum areas and fine arts. And you want to consider the pacing of the content. Let's go back a little bit and talk about readiness. Remember, one of the things that we said was that you might want to look at the students' access scores if they're English language learners. The access is a test that English language learners take in order to determine what level of English proficiency they're at. It determines their listening, their speaking, reading, and writing proficiency. Okay, in this example, the listening proficiency is 4 out of 6. That's pretty good. That's a level 4 student. The speaking proficiency, however, is 2.2. That's on the lower end of the speaking proficiency. So why do you want to know these scores? Well, take a look at the bottom. Along with these scores, WIDA provides guidance as to what a student at a certain proficiency level may be able to do. For example, since this student is a level 4 in listening, this student would be able to understand oral language in English related to specific topics in school and participate in class discussions. For example, exchange information and ideas with others, connect people and events based on oral information, apply key information about processes or concepts presented orally, and identify positions or points of view on issues in oral discussions. It's important to know that because then you'll know what you can realistically expect from that student when it comes to listening. Let's take a look at the reading. This particular student is a level 3 in reading. So that student may be able to understand written language related to common topics in school and can participate in class discussions. For example, classify main ideas and examples in written information, identify main information that tells who, what, when, or where something happened, identify steps in written processes and procedures, and recognize language related to claims and supporting evidence. Also, in order to determine readiness, you might use formative or summative assessments. Formative assessments like quizzes, observations, T-charts, Venn diagrams, these would be used in the classroom in order to let you know what a student knows about a particular topic or a particular skill. Now, if you want to have an overall assessment of knowledge in a particular topic, let's say what that student knows for the grade level, you might want to take a look at the state assessments, past district benchmarks, end of chapter unit tests, scores from summative tests from the year prior. These are all things that let you know and assess the readiness of the student. In order to assess student interest, the best thing to do is to ask the student. Okay, so this is an example of a survey that you might give to a student to find out what their favorite subject is, what their hobbies are, who they'd like to meet, places they'd like to visit, subjects, topics that they're interested in. So you want to find out different things about your students in order to assess their interests. And this can be incorporated into your lesson planning. Okay, let's talk a little bit about learning profile. Some students are good communicators. Some are knowledgeable in a particular topic. Some are very open-minded, risk takers. Some are reflective. Some are caring. Some are inquirers. So different students have different characteristics, and these characteristics make up their learning profile. Let's talk about multiple intelligences. In multiple intelligences, you may have a linguistic individual. These individuals listen to words. They like to be read to and may have an easy time with spelling. You may have spatial individuals. Spatial individuals are good with pictures, drawings, building, and puzzles. Bodily kinesthetic individuals excel in athletic activities and have well-developed fine and gross motor skills. Musical individuals enjoy music, rhymes, singing, and playing instruments. A naturalist may enjoy going outdoors, interacting with animals, and using natural materials. Logical, mathematical individuals enjoy puzzles, computer games, problem solving, and thinking activities. Interpersonal individuals are very social. They like to be with other people. They enjoy group activities. And intrapersonal individuals are independent and they're content to play and work alone. Now, it's most likely that the students in your classroom aren't going to be one or the other. They might exhibit multiple characteristics. But it's very important, for example, to know if a child is interpersonal or intrapersonal, because the activities that you're going to prepare and plan for the interpersonal students might include group activities. They might include projects where children work together to present as a classroom. Now, for the interpersonal student, you might have activities such as center work. You might have time when they're able to read silently at their desk. So let's talk about some examples of differentiated content. So the very first thing that we can talk about is reading material. Let's take, for example, a text about rabbits. One student might be able to read a text about rabbits that has very few images, while another student, an English language learner, might need something that has more of a visual support. See, for example, in this picture, this book not only has illustrations of rabbits, but they also have labels. The sentences here are repetitive, very simple, and vocabulary words are underlined. So you might have a book or a novel that is at a higher level for students of high English proficiency and high content knowledge, while you have another book that is intermediate in its complexity, and then yet a third book that deals with the same topic but has more of what we call scaffolds or supports for English language learners, as well as students who have very little knowledge in that content. Here we have a word wall. Now, many students might do well with just a word and the definition, but some students require visual help. Now, you might have students who would do pretty well with just the word and the definition, but then other students might benefit from having visual supports, such as we see here. Another example of differentiation of content is you might have a novel, and what you do is you assign a few students with the task of highlighting certain parts of the novel. You can do this yourself, or you can assign students who are at a higher level. And what they do is they highlight key parts of the novel. And English language learners, when they read that novel, they can focus in on the highlighted parts so they don't get lost in all the language. Something else that you could do when you differentiate content is to provide students with an outline. So you have the main content, but you provide an outline so that it gives the students a structure to follow. All of these were specific examples of differentiation of content. In the next session, we're going to jump into differentiation of process. Thank you.